Good evening and welcome to Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough. This is the Monster Blood April Fool's update for Crafting 101. In this video I'm going to be basically talking to you of a guide of how you can get yourself the grand prize for this event, which is the Monster Blood's house, which I've mentioned in my part 1 that, basically it's the old Waltz twins' house on the promenade that's now been filled with monster blood. It's interesting to say the least, especially since we came off with the grand prize of actually having an item, and we've come back to this one and it's just something else entirely. So, oh well. But I'm going to be talking about this real quick, and we will go from there. So let's go dive right in and tell you exactly how you get this going. So we've come here to good old Compton Dawes' Darkfall chemical plant, which I guess he must have brought back from the dumpster, because it certainly looked like it's been abandoned for 6 months. And if we look at the grand prize here, the Monster Blood House, you will see that there are 4 items you need to get. And I'm going to tell you how to get them and what's the best method to do it. So, you need the 12-hour MBs, or the Monster Bloods, which is 5 of them. You need 5 of the Slappy masks, 3 of the anti-chemical masks, which you'll need Dark Falls chemicals, and then the Monster's Delight. So all these items you can get from the one area here. So we're back to just using one crafting area. So this is Dark Falls Chemicals, which I believe was from last year's. So I don't know if it's called Darkfall Chemicals or was the Darkfall Chemical Plant, but it's the same building. As you know, there are certain items you can craft. There are fake spiders, monster blood cookies, the monster gum, the monster surprise, fake teeth, purple peanut butter, clown masks, Slappy's mask, the Monster Delight, which I am currently doing for a quest, the 20-hour MBs, the vaporizer, and then the anti-chemical masks. So, as you'll visually see, there are only certain things I'll talk about what you need to focus your attention on. Now, if you have one certain character in particular, this will make one of these items extremely easy to get. But your main focus is going to be the anti-chemical mask. Luckily, there's 3 of these you need to get only, and they're giving you a very lot of time. I think this is like maybe either it's going to be the first or the second longest update we had. I think the first one being the Halloween update, the first one we ever got, which was Haunted Halloween. But yeah, in order to get the anti-chemical mask, you'll need 1 of the vaporizers, 3 of the solar chokers, and then 3 of the evil haunted masks. So you need at least 9 of the solar chokers and then 9 of the evil haunted masks. Now, the solar chokers are easy enough. If you have both Slappy and Satyr in your town, then that will make it extremely easy to get because it drops 100%, so that won't be a problem to do. The evil mask, or the evil haunted mask, I'll talk about that in a bit, and some things with that. There is the vaporizer, which is up here. You'll notice that there are 2 items in particular, the interesting junk and then the prank plans. These are going to be your common items that you're going to be getting a bunch of. So besides these 2, a lot of the characters will be dropping these 2 items most specifically, and then there are certain characters that only drop exclusive items, and there's no real much suppliers. So in order to do the vaporizer, you'll need 2 of the Monster Delights and then 1 of the 12-hour MBs. If you look up here, these are the 2 items you need. So you need the Monster Surprise, the Monster Cookies, and then the Monster Gum. And then this one needs the Monster Gum too. So both of these need Monster Gums. You'll notice that these ones here, the purple peanut butter, I feel like if you don't have one character in particular, which I'm going to talk briefly about, this is going to be a bit difficult to get the purple peanut butter as of now. I'm not 100% sure what will happen next week, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then of course the Slappy's mask. So it's nice to see that most of the 4 items you need are here. For Slappy's mask, you only need 1 of the haunted masks and then 1 of the soul chokers and 5 of the plants. So really, to get a Slappy mask, it's not that hard to get as far as drops go. I mean, if you have all the characters, you should be fine with the soul chokers. If you don't, it might be a slight challenge. If you don't have either Slappy in your... I mean, you probably have Slappy in your town because he's very cheap to get, so at least you'll get a good chance of that. The Haunted Mask, on the other hand, is going to be a throwaway, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But you'll notice that things like the Clown Mask, the fake teeth, and then the fake spider, isn't needed to craft at all, so you are safe from being worried about that. However, the Monster Cookies, Monster Gum, and Monster Surprise are going to be your main focus, so you'll need at least one of the Monster Blood each for the Egg Surprise and the cookies, or the gum, I should say. And then you'll need a lot of the Toxic Candy, which there's only one place you can get that from, which I'll show. This is actually funny because this is actually coming back from the Haunted Halloween update, so nice to see that back again. We'll also get the Prank Plans, which are, again, it's a very common item to get, so that won't be a problem to achieve. The eggs, on the other hand, is going to be a problem, as well as the peanut butter, because there is no suppliers that drop them, but certain characters do. I say certain characters because there's only like one of them that drop these items, unless you have a premium character, which I'll mention before, which is a bit of a controversy during this update, which I think I mentioned in a minute, but let's go ahead and now take a look at some of these suppliers before we go into the characters. So, first of all, the suppliers. You'll notice that there's only one item in particular you can get from a supplier that's exclusive, and that is the candy dispensers over here. Now, these were from last year's Halloween, not last year's, but the first ever Halloween update, which you get these as well as the coins that's needed for this update. And if you look here, it will... the candy vending machine. So it drops every 6 hours. And the thing about them is that you're able to actually be... you can get multiple of these, so you can really just farm these out. And they are very inexpensive by $2.50. And, you know, you've been getting these currencies like candy, so really it's not that bad of a purchase. So if you're really going to have problems with the candy dispensers, I would suggest to maybe drop a few down and just kind of have them, either hoarding them or just putting them around your town. It is not a bad look of these machines, and it's actually not that you know, it's hard to say that there's only one item or one supplier that drops them, but if you can have multiple of these, so it's not like last update, which was just one item that's special and that's it. So that's good to see that that's there for that certain area. I'm just clicking on stuff while I go over here to talk about the next two. There's not a whole lot of suppliers in this update because... I'm going to quickly look here because I think there's only two more. Yeah, so there's only two other suppliers coming up, and they're up here. One of them is the Joke Shop. It drops like closely every 6 hours as well, and it only drops one of the papers. So really, it's kind of useless because a lot of other characters can drop you the papers. So really, it's not like it's a heads up type of deal. I mean, you can have multiple of these because it's not a bad looking building, but one of them should be fine. You'll be asked though to drop a lot of these junk piles, so you're gonna have a lot of junk piles on your hands. So these are like every 4.5 hours, and it gives you one of the junk piles here, which is very useful in the sense. And there are certain characters too. So with that, now we can talk about some of these characters. So let's talk about the common characters you're able to utilize. A lot of them don't have really much animations. Most of them are exclusive to the newer characters, or two of the newer characters anyways. But I might as well talk about them because they are needed. So first of all, we have Marty, who, as we could see, is doing the toilet paper prank, which is funny because Mr. Wood also has this kind of animation for Slappy, so I'm surprised he's not utilizing this update. But yeah, he only does this animation, and he's able to give you, you know, prank plans, so really that's the only thing he's useful for this update, unfortunately. Then we have Lucy, which is up here. She is going to be one of the characters you're going to be needing to keep an eye on for a while, because she only drops you one item, and it's one of the exclusives, which is the chocolate egg. So she's the only character as of now that's able to drop this if you're free and if you didn't partake in the last update that happened in March. We have the other exclusive freemium character that drops a certain item, which is Dustin, which is the peanut butter, which is like peanut butter cup. But yeah, so if you go here, safe, same thing like Lucy, but he drops you this. He's the only other character that drops you the peanut butter type of thing, so that kind of sucks, but what are you gonna do? We have Eric here. He's the other free character. He gives you the prank plan, so that's the only thing he's useful for, so have him do that. So you can see that there's a balance between having a lot of the plans and the junk, so you're not going to have too much of a problem. As long as you're following with the quest update, you shouldn't have a problem with getting the items required, especially with the amount of time we get, especially when you see when the due date is. It's very generous, so I wouldn't think that this would be too bad, especially if you don't go premium route, but there's that. The other character is Mrs. Dark. Now, she only does one thing, which is the drop the plans here, but the thing with her is that she'll be needed for the soul chokers, which I've mentioned before. She and another character, which is our good friend Satyr, if I can find him somewhere. I'm trying to remember where I decided to stick him. He's over here. Okay, so and then there's Satyr. Now, Satyr doesn't drop you any of the items, but he does give you currency, which is the Scheming New Sale. It seems like, as of late, Scheming New Sales has just been exclusive for just currency type of stuff. He used to just be able to kind of do something else to give you one item in particular, but really, he's only useful for just getting you a currency, and then that's about it, so that kind of sucks for him. So he's not really valuable for this update, unless, of course, you want to get 100% on the solar chokers, which is over here. So if you had these three only, it's only 30%, which isn't that great. If you go for Slappy, which is very easy to get because he's 100, as far as I last checked, it's 80%, so that's a very higher chance. And then, of course, if you have him, 100%. So we'll just have him do this right now and terrorize a little bit while I talk about before I talk about other characters that are useful, because I think I talked about most of the non-premium ones that are useful. Well, except Satyr, but he's not considered as special as other characters are. Right, so let's just see what else besides there is one other character down there. I might as well mention him real quick. This is the other exclusive premium character that's useful, which is Andrew Craw, which is funny to see him being involved because he's actually is useful for this update. And it makes sense because he is a bit of a prankster, especially if you saw my playthrough of his questline back at the end of last year. And he gives you two quests. So either discover the library or disorder the library shelves, which gives you the prank plans, or he gives you the search for missing head animation for the interesting junk pile. So either or, it's the same. It's cheaper to do the interesting junk piles, but it depends on what you're more lacking in. So you have the freedom to kind of choose which or. But again, these items are very inexpensive, so it's like it's not a necessity to have them, but it's a little bit of a nice. Oh, that's a nice little feature there. So I think I've seen the town being terrorized, and they should be. Yeah, it looks like they're about done now. So let me go ahead and put those two characters back to action. I'll also mention another character that is going to be utilized for this update, but like I said, he's only going to be needed for one particular quest, which I believe will be the next one after this one. So anyways, they're done with that, so let me just go back to Satyr. We'll put him to scheming. There you go. And then Mrs. Dark will go back to her home to stay safe. I believe it stays... Oh no, she's just going to spy on neighbors in her own house for the prank plans, which I don't know why this is the case, but whatever. Alright, so I'll mention this character because he's not really needed for the event and he doesn't drop anything, but he does help. If you have Theo in your game, he helps you with this out because otherwise you get 10% of this. have them, it's about 60%, and then if you sacrifice 2 goose bucks, it's about 100%. Or no, it's 90%, so that's a lot higher. So really 60%, it's not a great deal, especially with this. This is probably the worst one to get, but luckily the clown mask is not needed for this update, and I think you only need 3 of these, so really it's only going to hinder you during the quest, I believe. I'm not too sure about the book price. I'll mention about that in a minute. But yeah, there's that. There's not much else to talk about. Now, before I go on to one of the special characters, I'll mention this. If you have a Mazo back in your, if you got a Mazo during the last event or you had him before, you'll notice that he doesn't really drop you anything in particular. However, him and another character, and this was spotted out. I'm going to give a shout out to this person who was from the Reddit forums. They go under the name Wallflower Number 1. And they mentioned on the forum that if you have Sam and Mazo, if you decide to have a Mazo do blend 4 silk fabric into 1, you'll notice that there's no drop anything, because he actually drops you currency. For some strange reason, it doesn't tell you he drops currency, but he does. So I'm not 100% sure if there are other characters that kind of do this, but it's nice to know that there are people who kind of do this randomly and go, oh, I found this out. It's weird how it's like you do this weird animation and then it's like gives you a, oh, look, congrats, you found this out, lucky you. The other character I think I briefly mentioned is Sam, who's right over there. If you have him pretend that it's Halloween, he'll give you the event currency. So it's about 1:50. So you have these 2 characters. It's nice if you want to grind for coins, because there are certain items in this update that are really expensive. But if you played through the other events like I have, there's only one item that is probably going to be the more hard to get. But I'm already getting close to getting it anyway, so it's not really going to be hard to grind these items, especially since how much generous they are of giving you the actual amount of coins. So I think, you know, it's not that difficult, I would say. They're being a bit honest and generous for the amount of time they give them. So before I talk about the new characters and the scene, I'm going to talk about these 2. These 2 are controversial as of right now because of what has happened. If you know through my part 1, I mentioned how both their books are gone now. And from what I understand, they are coming back permanently, but they're going to be changed slightly. I'm not 100% sure what exactly that might mean, but it sounds like the special book option might finally get unlocked sooner or later, so I'm wondering if they're doing this to kind of build up some content for the game. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see what comes up about it. But anyways, we have both Nat and Pat Wald. Both of these 2 characters, if you have them, as I mentioned before, one of them will give you like the junk and the other one will give you the plans. But if you'll notice, if you have both Pat and Nat, Nat will give you the eggs, and then Pat will give you the peanut butter. So these are 2 other characters that are able to give you stuff during this update. So if you have them, they're useful to help you get to some of the items, in particular the eggs and the peanut butter, especially the peanut butter, because that's going to be very, I think that's going to be the more difficult one to get, in my opinion anyways. So there's that. Now I am going to mention some of the things here. I'll mention about one of the newer scenes in a minute, but not just yet. But instead, I'm going to talk about the new characters that got added to the game that are freemium. These are our 2 favorite pets from the Monster Blood series. Trigger, the dog, and Cuddles the hamster. Especially Cuddles is known a lot within the Goosebumps lore. These 2 are only going to be used for 2 things. One of them is that they don't have any animations, but they do give you like the prank and interesting junks in particular, like both of these here. So really they're not really useful for that, but what they are, I mean, besides being characters that walk around and kind of do give you something, what they're mostly going to be used for is the Dark Falls Junkyard. You'll need about, it looks like 60 of the coins at least to summon both of these. This will give you a 60% chance to get the Monster Blood can. And honestly, it's not a bad percent compared to how it was. Like 30% was like ridiculous. So 60%, it's better than, you get a better chance of a 50-50. So it's still kind of but it doesn't look like for the Monster Blood there's a whole lot you need to craft to get. So I think it's okay for the most part. But let's talk about one of the newer exclusive characters for bundles and, well, not bundles, but for premium cars. This is Evan. And Evan, I think someone was upset by picking him up because besides some of his animations, he is, as he calls him, Compton 2.0. Because Compton is himself a controversy, which I'm probably going to mention either I mentioned in part 1 or I'm going to mention in the future. But yeah, with this character in particular, there are only a few things he can do. The junk piles and skipping school. Again, other characters can do that, so it's not very valuable. The only two things there's 3 things he's valuable with. One of them is feeding Cuddles and Triggers, which gives you the Monster Surprise, which helps you within the event for crafting one particular item. I believe it's the Monster Surprise gelatin thing that will help you with getting the masks. And then there's the Play with Monster Blood, which gives you Slappy's mask. So if you get this character, Slappy's mask will be obsolete because you won't need to craft it. All you'll need is him to do this 5 times and boom, you're done. You don't need to do Slappy's masks anymore. So really, that's not, like, if you have them, you get an upper hand from one of the items in particular, but other than that, not much. I will mention this though. The other last thing he's useful for, it's for the junk files gelatin. As you know, play him free, you get 40%, not a great deal, but if you use them and then the other characters, it's a guarantee 100% to get the Monster Blood. So let's have them summon up. And I think I mentioned part 1 how these guys, huge, it's funny. Evan is the only threat because he's stomping around. Trigger is just the big white happy dog that just licks people. And then Cuddles is just happy to be running around. I love the fact that they basically stay true with the Monster Blood trilogy, because the first one had Trigger be giant, then Cuddles, and kind of like Evan was also a giant in number 2, but mainly he was the focus for number 3. So it's kind of nice to see these guys do this thing. I think the only downside to these is, well, besides, like if you look at Tim Jacobs' art in the update, or not in the update, but in the game, you'll notice that Cuddles has like Monster Blood coming out of its mouth. So, and it looks like threatening too. Oh yeah, I can't really do that because it shows you Evan's feet instead. But yeah, down there, it's interesting to see how that book makes it look so threatening, but then you look at here and it's just like, oh, it's just a giant hamster. That's the only scary part about him. It's like, oh, ooh, spooky, right? Not really too threatening, to tell you the truth. So I'll have him do this for now because whatever. And you know what? Because these are short, I'm gonna have him do this just for now. So there you go. So the other character, as you probably have noticed, the evil masks. That's not the only, like, the returning items isn't just from Halloween per se. There's also another character that came back, or is coming back. If you get the novelty shop here, you'll notice that Carly Beth is going to be coming back. Now, as of right now, I do have Carly Beth roaming around the streets. I'll try to just do this real quick here because I have passed her, but I don't know where she is. But yeah, as you can see here, she doesn't have any items or things to drop as of yet. However, I know she and another character, which is Alex, not the wrong thing. Not Alex, Andy. Okay, yeah, here, Andy. Her and Andy are going to come next week in the bundle. The reasoning for this, and they're not like, oh, they're exclusive only in the bundle. No. What's going on is that they've had complaints in the past with, oh, I wanted to buy this character in the bundle. Had I known the character was coming in the bundle, I wouldn't have bought her with my cash. So this was their response to this. So what they did was they hid the characters from us. And when the update comes out with the bundle, these characters will be made available to us through currency. So I think these characters are going to be premium by the sounds of it, but you know, if you have the novelty shop, you'll only need to get 45 coins from one of them. And what's great about this too is the guy at the bottom here with 45, he before was like ridiculous. He was like costing money. So the fact that he's now costing like the event currency makes it a lot better to get everything here, because you'll just need to get 45 coins, and then you'll need, you know, the 75 of the coins in order to be able to get a 50-50 chance. So not the greatest, but definitely doable, right? It's not as great as, say, the Darkfall junkyard scene, but as far as this goes, it's a fair, you can get it or not get it, and there's not a whole lot of masks you need to craft with this as of yet. But if you do have Carly Bath, or you do get Carly Bath next week, it's a 90% guarantee. I'm not sure if Carly Bath or what Andy will be dropping within this update. What I will tell you though is that Andy mostly, like Carly Bath could be updated with some content to come in. It's not the first time I've seen this happen, so maybe she doesn't have anything yet because she's not technically in the game. I say that quote unquote if you didn't have her already through the exclusive bundles that was happening back in the past. But the fact of the matter is, with Carly Bath here and Andy more likely Andy's going to be needed in order to get the book, which is down here. And as I mentioned before, the fact that the books from the other ones are gone, this surprised me as well as everyone else, because I was under the assumption that they were going to keep these moving forward, but apparently they're changing it slightly. So it seems like you'll be able to kind of get this stuff now. So I have no idea exactly what is going to be needed for the giant egg here as of yet. But if I'm going to guess, I'm going to assume it's going to be the pranking items. So I'm hoping it's not going to be as bad to graph. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. I will say though that people weren't happy because they weren't able to get the two prizes here, the Doreen statue and the beast stick. And I'm going to tell you something, these are just items. They don't drop any scares at all. It's not like, alright, they're done, so let's just do that. They're not like the item we got in February, which is this, right? It drops you like scare points. The two items up there are just decorations. They don't do anything. So really, I guess you didn't miss out unless you really wanted those statues. But yeah, I mean, the prize is a giant egg with that looks like a dinosaur. It's interesting, but I'll have to look and see what it is at the end of the day. So I hope the rambling is pretty much good enough that you have a good rough understanding of what you need to do. So roughly, you're going to need to do the anti-chemical mask. It's going to be the hardest thing to get, because you need the vaporizers and then the thing here. If you do go for Evan, you won't need to do any items for the Slappy mask per se, so you only need to be focused on the Monster Delight 24-hour Monster Blood gum, and then the anti-chemical masks stuff and the vaporizers in order to get the grand prize. I will say that I'm glad that the anti-chemical mask, there's not a whole lot you need for that. You only need 3 of these, so it's not going to be a pain to craft through. So with this, it seems doable. The prize looks interesting enough. It's not terrible, but it could be better. I mean, I actually honestly thought we were going to get this scene as our grand prize, but I guess not. I guess it's just, oh, giant version of characters. That's not interesting enough. It's not like monsters and monster forms, right? Maybe they could have done that, but whatever. It's a missed opportunity, but what can you do? So if you look at this, now it's changed to 30 days, right? So certainly it's like 4 weeks and something like that, but with the timing of this recording, it's turned into 30 days. So anything past 30 days, it goes into weeks. So you can tell that this event is a lot longer than what we've been getting so far. So this gives us a whole lot. And you might be curious on exactly when will this update end. Well, as far as my calculation goes to the calendar calculator, if this makes sense, this update should end Monday, May the 4th, be with you, Star Wars Day. 2020 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time like usual. So that gives you a whole month to get things done. I mean, this is roughly like, we're on like April 4th as of right now, and this started back in April Fool's Day. So really, I think for the most part, this should be an easy thing to grab. It's not like as pain like it was last event, but I can see that there might be some issues as far as certain characters and items go. But I'll have to wait and see what happens within next week when we get Andy and Carly Beth into the scene and how they will play within this event, because they may change it fully. If that does become the case, then you can check out the Reddit forum if I do update. There's most likely going to be updates there if anything comes up, and more features to come as well. So, best of luck to everyone. Hope you get what you need. And let me know down below what you think of this event so far and how you believe this is turning out. So, that's it from me. I'm Grim, and I'll be seeing you next time on the next Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough for Monster Blood. Until then, have a good Easter.